Okay. The meeting of the Design Adjustment Committee will now come to order. Today is Wednesday, February 16th. My name is Robert Gordon. I'm the committee chair. Attorney Sean Evans will be advising the committee on legal and procedural questions. And Brian Chambers and Amy Bradshaw are here to serve as staff to the committee. The Design Adjustment Committee's purpose is to establish clear and measurable review criteria for the consideration of major deviations from the city's technical standards and specifications, manual building design, material standards, and subdivision standards. The Design Adjustment Committee does not consider the housing type, cost of the proposed unit, occupants, building material, unit size, number of bedrooms, or the architectural design of the structures. These hearings are quasi-judicial evidentiary hearings. That means it's like a court hearing, and the committee's decisions are constrained by the standards in the ordinance and based on the facts presented. All variants require a 4/5 vote of the committee to grant the variance. Appeals of the Design Adjustment Committee are to the Board of Adjustment. A written notice of appeal must be filed with the city clerk within 30 days of the Design Adjustment Committee's decision. Appeals set for hearing before the Board of Adjustment within 30 days or as soon thereafter as practicable. The parties to these cases are entitled to an impartial board. If a board member has a fixed opinion about the matter, a financial interest in the outcome, a close relationship with the affected person, or has had any ex parte communication about the matter, please disclose that information to determine if a recusal is necessary. City staff will introduce the proposed project to the Design Adjustment Committee, and the Design Adjustment Committee members may ask questions. The applicant may present additional information about the project, and the members may ask questions. If anyone wishes to provide evidence at today's hearing, witnesses must sign in on the clipboard at the back of the room and be sworn in. Because witnesses are to provide sworn testimony, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. When a witness comes forward to give testimony, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and speak clearly. At this time, staff will administer the oath for all individuals who intend to provide witness testimony.
If I can have all staff, applicants, and public please stand up and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
I think we would like to take care of a couple of administrative items prior to the case. Is that okay?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. I would suggest that we take up the minutes from the last meeting, and then if the committee is ready to consider nominations and electing a vice chair, I'd suggest that before proceeding with the item today.
Has the board read and reviewed the minutes from the last meeting? And if so, do we have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. So I guess that brings us to the next item, which is nomination and, I guess, election of a vice chair for the committee. Anybody have any nominations? I'm going to nominate Dennis for vice chair. I think he's got a lot of experience. Anybody have any other discussion? Does that require a second?
Yes, sir.
A second.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carries. Dennis is our new vice chair. All right, so is it staff will now present the first item?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
This preliminary plan was submitted prior to the adoption of the new Land Development Code effective 12/1/21 and would be subject to the previous Land Development Code regulations. The Design Adjustment Committee would be acting in place of the formal Subdivision Review Board for the review and approval of this item. The site is the former Starway Drive-In Theater and most recently the Starway Flea Market located at 2346 Carolina Beach Road. The site is 15.61 acres in size and is zoned MD17, multi-dwelling residential, high density. The applicant proposes a 4-lot subdivision as well as construction of a new public street, which would be Maryland Avenue, including utility extensions and stormwater facilities to serve the new lots. The proposed new public street would extend Maryland Avenue from the western side of the subject site to its terminus at Carolina Beach Road. The new street extension would provide access to the site from Carolina Beach Road, as well as access to the existing neighborhoods of Sunset Park and Sunset South. The proposed street extension would be a variable width right-of-way to include between 25 feet and 30 feet of pavement for the standard cross-section and 41 feet of pavement width where on-street parking is proposed. The proposed Maryland Avenue extension would also include vertical curb and sidewalk on both sides of the street. The site has access to public water and sewer mains along Carolina Beach Road and Maryland Avenue. The applicant proposes a 12-inch public water main extension within the proposed right-of-way, and an 8-inch public sewer main would be installed within Lot 1 connecting from Carolina Beach Road. The applicant has included 4 waivers for your consideration today. The technical standards and specifications manual stipulates that the right-of-way width for a residential collector street shall be 60 feet in width. The proposed residential collector for the extension of Maryland includes a variable width right-of-way, and a waiver is required. The technical standards and specification manual stipulates that grass plazas shall be 8 feet wide and provide on both sides within the proposed street right-of-way from the back of curb to sidewalk. The applicant is proposing to remove a portion of the plaza along the southern side of the proposed street, and a waiver is required. The technical standards and specification manual stipulates for the portion of sidewalk adjacent to back of curb on the southern side of the proposed public street, 6-foot wide sidewalks are required. The applicant is proposing 5-foot sidewalks on the southern portion of the right-of-way, and a waiver is required. The technical standards and specification manual stipulates that a 10-foot non-municipal easement are required on both sides of the proposed public street. The applicant is proposing to eliminate the 10-foot non-muni easement on the southern side of the proposed street, and a waiver is required. Finally, in the letter that the applicant submitted, just for your information, they request an additional waiver for a driveway offset, which is located in this location. And TRC and staff have determined that that waiver would be considered when the full multifamily project would be submitted for this, and wouldn't be considered at today's proceedings. That concludes my presentation. I believe the applicant is also here to make a presentation and to answer questions.
Is there something in the code compelling this lot configuration?
I don't know.
Lots 3 and 4 appear to be remnant lots, unused, unusable remnant lots. That's their option, or that's something they're required to do?
They are not required. That is their choice.
Okay, thank you.
They would be remnant lots and basically unbuildable.
And there's nothing prohibiting the creation of unbuildable lots?
When you're recording a right-of-way, no. They would just be labeled as unbuildable lots.
Thanks.
Jeff, in attachment 3, in the letter from the engineer, it talked about the back of curb distance of 29 feet rather than the standard 34 feet. And I was just curious, does that require a variance?
I couldn't hear what you were saying. Can you say it again?
Sure. If you look at attachment 3 for the waiver requests, under item 1, it talks in the middle of the paragraph about back of curb to back of curb distance is 29 feet rather than the standard 34 feet. And I was wondering if that requires a variance, because that's not listed as one of the variances.
We felt that we covered the variants that were requested. I'll have to defer to the applicant to see if we're covering all the items that they had requested in our staff report.
Okay.
I got one, sorry, Jeff. Just to clarify again, the letter from the engineer, it lists 4 items. The 4th item is not being considered here at this meeting, correct?
The number of waivers they requested was represented in our report other than item number 4.
Correct.
We felt that would be handled elsewhere.
And just for clarity, there's 4 in the letter and there's 4 requests. However, it appears in the letter from the engineer, there are 2 requests in the first item.
That's correct.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Chris Bostick with Kimley Horn. Here with me today are also Cindy Wolf and Ted Halpern that may be here to answer questions if there's some that arise. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. Jeff did a great job of, I think, hitting the high points of the requests that are out there today. I would just to kind of paint a picture, kind of a broad brushstrokes of why we have the waiver requests that we do. The extension of Maryland Avenue is truly a function of kind of getting from point A to point B. On the west side, we're connecting to Maryland Avenue where it exists today. We have a limited amount of frontage along Carolina Beach where we can actually make the driveway connection. It certainly was our intent to hit as many standards from a street connection standpoint as we could. The horizontal design complies with city standards as far as curves and tangent sections. And with the adjacent property to the south, there were some constraints there as far as wanting to make sure that we could construct the road within the property that we have. So, for example, the request for the sidewalk width on the south side and the location of the sidewalk on the south side is a function of the fact that we're up against another property. We certainly wanted to provide the sidewalk accommodation on both sides of the street. Secondly, we felt that the parallel parking, not only would that provide, additional parking in the vicinity, but it would also act as a traffic calming measure, as there had been some concerns about speeds of cars traveling through here. And then lastly, just to mention on the question that was asked earlier with respect to the driveway width of 25 feet, that occurs on the west side of the road where we're actually connecting into the existing section of Maryland Avenue. So we're matching the width of road at that point of connection. So I'll leave it at that, and if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them today.
The on-street parking, is there going to be a corresponding reduction in the surface parking lot to go along with that?
I'll answer that this way, that we felt that with what is being proposed on the subject lots and the way that that we have to bring forward the lots for the funding that they need from the state and federal agencies, that parallel parking would assist in making the project that we're proposing on lots 1 and 2 feasible. So we feel that having that parallel parking makes, provides adequate parking for the entire development.
Okay, so where I'm going with this is, are you exceeding the minimum number of parking spaces required? Because the old code requires a minimum,
Sure.
has a minimum and a maximum.
Sure. So with the, we're barely exceeding it with what we're proposing with the on-street parking.
Okay, very good. Generally supportive of on-street parking, I like it. I just would like to, see that correspond to a reduction elsewhere. My other question is about the sidewalk widths.
Sure.
You mentioned that there's federal funding involved with this project, which leads me to believe that there are a lot of regulations tied to the situation. Do you know the anticipated rate of personal vehicle ownership at build-out?
I do not. There might be someone here that can opine approximately on that. Ted, do you have any feedback on that?
I'll tell you why I'm asking is because I'm concerned that there's potentially an overemphasis on movement of cars rather than movement of people, and I'd like to ensure that folks have a really safe, adequate pedestrian network here. So I'm a little concerned about the reduction in the sidewalk width and just under that umbrella of.
Yeah, hi, my name is Ted Heilbronn. I'm a part of the development team. And as it relates to car ownership, I don't have an exact statistic for you. The truth is, we know that more for an affordable apartment development, more of our tenants will be utilizing public transportation than a market rate project. Our parking counts for the site are being driven by Wilmington Code. So other municipalities that we're working in, there's no parking required for affordable units. And in this case, the desire to provide a great project but meet Wilmington's parking requirements are driving the street parking. And to the earlier question, we do not plan on parking above the minimum parking requirement, inclusive of both what's street parked on the street and on the subject lots.
Okay, are you taking advantage of the availability to reduce the minimum parking for this housing type? That is a code provision.
We have not looked at that option yet.
Okay. And with the sidewalk width, or,
Sorry, just to tie a bow on that, the minimum parking ratio required by North Carolina Housing Finance Agency is below what right now is being driven by the conversation about parking to meet Wilmington's code. We absolutely will explore solutions to minimize the amount of total parks on the site.
Okay.
Full well recognizing that, again, the level of car ownership will not be one-to-one compared to a market rate apartment development.
And that is also driving my concern about the reduction in sidewalk width, because if there's a lower rate of personal vehicle ownership, it's reasonable to assume that there would be an increased rate of pedestrian activity. And so I'm concerned about diminishing the width of the sidewalks because of that.
Yeah, again, I believe we're talking about the sidewalk on the southern side of the Maryland Ave extension, is that correct?
Right, well, you've requested a waiver to allow sidewalk to be installed your letter says at a lesser width. Waiver from the standard residential collector cross-section for a reduction in sidewalk width.
It is for only a limited area along that southern edge where we abut the adjacent property. So basically between the two slivers of remnant property, lot 3 and 4.
Okay.
To be totally candid, when we originally tried to lay the site out, there did not seem to be a functional need to have sidewalk on the southern side of the site, but understanding that increasing pedestrian access across the city, particularly on public roads, we've absolutely prioritized adding it. But when we talk about pedestrian movements, particularly in the context of knowing that there's a Wave Transit bus stop just south of the site on the western side of Carolina Beach Road, we very much believe that the portion of the sidewalk on the northern side of the site that meets code will be sufficient to allow folks to get back and forth public transportation.
Thank you.
I had a question, actually. I was wondering if you could elaborate, it looks to me, if you could elaborate exactly why the sidewalk shifts to the back of curb on the southern side. It looks like on the north side, you've got a more standard cross-section, with the plaza width. You got the bump outs for the parking, and then you've got room for the street trees and such. And, for the portion adjacent to the remnant lots, 3 and 4, you sort of mimic that, but then you narrow it down and push the street trees to the opposite side of the sidewalk. And I'm just curious as to why.
Sure. So, we control what happens on lot 1 and 2, right? So whatever that transition is from whatever the road cross-section is going to be at the back of the sidewalk to our development, we can control how that tie-out occurs. On the south side, however, because we're limited from a space standpoint, believe it or not, there's probably 10 feet of elevation change from the west side of Maryland out to Carolina Beach Road. So that and the existing kind of drainage features that exist behind the structures that are just off our property to the south, it makes for a tricky transition in there to avoid having a wall or some sort of adverse grading. So that's what was driving the orientation of the sidewalk at the curb as opposed to the typical section which we have on the north side.
So would you have room in that between the back of sidewalk and the property line to install street trees? I mean, do you have drainage that's coming onto the property at that location, or?
We could install landscaping in that area, yes.
So
we can, yeah, we could. I think the waiver was more toward the location of, the plaza area is typically between the curb and the sidewalk, and so that was the point that we were making with the waiver request, is that we couldn't do it in that exact fashion. But yes, you could install landscaping behind the sidewalk.
Okay, so the grades are not so steep or, to where you can't install the required, there's no other site constraint that would prevent, installing the required street trees and such there?
No.
Okay, so your justification for shifting it to the non-standard section is a site constraint grade change?
That's right, because typically in that plaza area has a very minimal slope to it, right, from the curb to the sidewalk. So we would need to be able to work some of that slope out in that area, but that would not necessarily prohibit planting trees in that area. That's right, yep.
Okay. No utility conflicts, the street trees can be installed?
I would suspect while the final dry utility design is not complete, I would suspect that the majority of that will occur on the north side of the road.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
I would like to just ask, was it explored to make Maryland Avenue a little straighter to avoid all of these variances? Not a straight road.
Sure.
The curvature definitely helps with the traffic calming. However, if the curves are a little short, was anything explored to potentially avoid these variances?
So one of the other factors here was that in the future, if the property to the south redeveloped, that they would also have access to the street. So having a point of, common point of connection between the two was something that drove that. And then frankly, with the type of project that's proposed here on lots 1 and 2, we certainly were looking to provide, a layout that's conducive to what we were trying to do there. And frankly, that's still a pretty tight area. So, but again, as I mentioned in my introduction, we certainly did do our best and did indeed, meet the horizontal curve requirements with the road layout.
Okay.
So the justification for the position of the road is to maximize the lot size, the remaining lot size?
No, I would say that the justification for it is to provide the opportunity for the property to the south, if it redevelops, to make a connection, and then also to provide for traffic calming, because to your point, if you've got a straight road, people are tending to drive more quickly on a straight road than they would on one that has curves.
So I guess a follow-up question I would have is, what would it do to the project if you added the 1 foot of extra sidewalk width adjacent to the, I mean, I feel like on a lot that's what, how many acres? 14, 15 acres? I'm struggling with how do we not find a foot to put additional width of sidewalk in?
You know, if a foot of sidewalk is the ultimate concern, I think we could probably find a way to make it work with the additional foot of sidewalk. There still is a little bit of constraint as you come to Carolina Beach Road, because the property next down in this location, we have some required off-site improvements with the right turn lane, where essentially this driveway on the Carolina Beach needs to be as far south as it possibly can be.
But you don't need 6 feet sidewalk there, right? You only need 5 feet of sidewalk when you're adjacent to the parking. So right there at the tip of Lot 4, where the sidewalk merges to the back of curb, and where it, you know, departs at the end of the parallel parking in front of Lot 3, you meet standards, right? I mean, you've got 5 foot sidewalk there. It's just you're creating a continuous network of 5 foot sidewalk instead of the required 6 feet of sidewalk adjacent to the parallel.
So you know, if that is solely the concern, then I think we could find a way to accommodate that.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I can respect the need to make grade adjustments. But the 6 foot, it's like, it's almost exacerbated by the fact that there's parking there. It's like, you know, when you're downtown, you want to have, you open your doors into the furnishing zone, you know, so you're, you know, you're encroaching into that sidewalk with the door swings. So it's like, I just was having trouble seeing that, so, but I appreciate that clarification.
Sure.
Any other questions for the applicant, or? So at this point, Sean, can you help me as to the next steps?
Sure. At this point, we've heard from the city and the applicant, representatives of the owner. I'm just going to ask if anyone in the audience, there are 2 different times to speak, and I know that both of you were sworn in and maybe considering speaking, but there's an option. If you would like to claim status as a party, now would be the time to speak. If you would like to just generally speak during the public comment period that follows that as a witness, then you can wait. If you're claiming status as a party, there's an additional fact-finding query that the board would need to make to determine if you're a party or if you're just a general witness. So that's really up to you. So I'll leave that in your discretion.
So if there is there anyone who claims standing as a party to this case? Is there anyone here?
I'll leave it up to you to decide if I do have standing. If not, I'll speak as a member of the public.
Sure, I appreciate it. And just for the board.
Describe, you know, why I might have standing.
Yes, ma'am. What you need to demonstrate to the board is that you have special damages, and I'll just briefly kind of go over what the categories are for it.
Okay, I think it could be resolved just to let you know that I'm a member of the Butters HOA Sunset South Owners Association. Nobody's here today. I know they did not get notice, although they changed their address with the county, and I believe they still haven't changed it in record, even though it was submitted and received on January 19th. So,
Ma'am, could you please?
But if I don't have that status, since I'm not a board member at this point, then I'll speak as a member of the public when the time comes.
Yeah, we're going to have a public comment here, period here. You know, if there's no one else withstanding, I can go ahead and open the public comment period, the 10-minute public comment period, if there's no one else withstanding.
And please be sure to state your name and address for the record and speak directly into the microphone.
Sure. My name is Susan Shalhoub. I live at 244 Virginia Avenue, which is in Sunset South, and as I mentioned, I'm a member of the Sunset South Owners Association. I'm the chair of the Stormwater Committee, and I've been following this issue. I've spoken out in favor of the proposal to have the 2 phases or projects equaling 274 units of affordable housing. However, with respect to the road, I believe that, as was made pretty clear by many of the city councilors, certainly a majority, they question whether there needs to be a collector street. There was proposal, I don't know when it was, 2012, to have collector streets, one of which would have been in that area. And it was rejected, not just for the Sunset Park area, but many other neighborhoods. And so we didn't understand why WMPO was recommending this collector street, since it doesn't seem to be needed. You have Bell Street, you have Southern Boulevard. Why, if they're being told you cannot let your residents take a left turn out of the development to head north on 421, why they can't just have even the same road as designed, but instead have it be internal and then go out a back driveway. And the desirability of having it that way, then the new complex isn't going to have to deal with what we deal with, which is cut-through traffic, including tractor-trailer trucks. It's going to be a very inviting thing, which is why what they're trying to do, make it look less like a collector street, is good from where I sit. But you come down Carolina Beach Road, you can hit all the green lights. They seem to be synchronized all the way through to Market Street on 3rd Street. So if you're at the right speed, that's a good morning or evening when you hit all the green lights. But then you get up to the the medical center area, and there's traffic, et cetera. So you'll be able to take that new right turn on the extended Maryland Avenue, and if you're headed for the port area or you're going down to River Road, you're going to completely be able to bypass Medical Center Drive, Bell Street, and Shipyard Boulevard. And you might say, well, how many cars are going to do that? An increasing number do it now because of the buildup south of here. But the real problem are the trucks. How are you going to keep them out? And, you know, with respect to what has been testified to at other hearings about how many cars from this complex are actually going to need to use that street at the various times, I think it was Dave Bennett, he said 11. I went back and I looked during the peak morning rush hour. 11 cars, okay. That's not what it says in the traffic impact analysis, it's more. But even if it's all 274 units, one car, and half of them go out the back, that's not the problem, it's the cut-through traffic. And from what I've heard from the developer and the representatives, including the attorney, they don't see that this project needs a collector street. And what they need, like I said, is a nice road on the side to go out that back driveway, keep the design, and then you don't run into 2 other problems that City Council, they didn't need to deal with it because in their mind, they thought you all had the authority to look at these other issues, which doesn't seem to me that you would believe that you have that authority. All that you would do is just look at the design, do we need the road or not? Well, yeah, they need a way to get out the back because the state's not going to let them head north. But those 2 problems are the funding issue. I know it was, I believe, Ted, I remember him speaking in front of the county commissioner, seeking money from the American Rescue Funds. They also sought them and got them from the city. And a large part of what was putting them in the hole was the $1 million that was estimated for the road. You can't use American Rescue Funds to build normal infrastructure for a municipality. And so dedicating this to the city means that's what you're doing with that money, even though you might show it on your books as allocated to mortgage funds. Later on, when the IRS comes and does their audit, who knows what they're going to say? And I believe neither the city nor the county took advantage of the IRS's procedure to answer these questions beforehand. And then the other problem is that part of Maryland Avenue has never been accepted by the city. And so it's considered by the city's attorney's office, that's where this is coming from, private property. There's a right-of-way that gets established when a subdivision's plan is accepted by the city if it's designated as being public, but until a road or a portion of a road is actually goes through the whole process of being examined to make sure it was built according to technical standards, and then the city council votes on it, it's going to retain its identity as private property. And this came up when we had a request to speak with the police chief, the previous police chief, about why they weren't responding to our calls to take cars that were being dumped on that part of Maryland Avenue as well as Nevada Avenue. And they said, we don't have the authority. And it was reiterated at this meeting by the representative from the city attorney's office that there was no authority to do that. It's a public way, which means, you know, we can't keep people from using it, but nobody's going to get ticketed. And so, you know, cars were being parked all over Jefferson Street, Adams Street, et cetera. And those streets were subsequently accepted by the city council, but very distinctly that block of Maryland Avenue was not put forward. It doesn't appear, other than in the proposed dedication in the Sunset South plat, anywhere else. If you go back to the plat before Sunset South, you see that it's shown as a lot. And back in the 40s, somebody bought up all these lots and they built an apartment complex, and they used one of the lots so that a building that they kind of put on the side opened up onto that lot. But no plat was ever changed. And the other problem also that I see, again, which is obviated by just having it designated as a private street for use by those residents with the right to use the driveway because of an easement by necessity, I think it's called. You just get around all these issues of who owns this or who doesn't. But I would say if my research, which shows that that block in Maryland Avenue has never been a designated stub street, that means that while the WMPO might have thought it was a good idea to have a collector street, they should have gone through the whole public hearing process that they went through previously with proposals for collector streets. If it's not already designated somewhere as a designated stub street, you can't just do that without bringing the public into it. There haven't been any public hearings at all on this subdivision, as large as it is. They did not seek conditional zoning. It was a regular zoning change, so there was no need to do so. And WMPO was operating under the assumption this was a designated stub street because material that was submitted to them said that, but it's not. And this,
1 minute left.
And so I think that, you know, it's clear from what city council members said that they question the need for a connector street, a collector street, especially given the fact that promises in other neighborhoods have been kept. as well as the burden on the project itself to have all that cut-through traffic. There's been no information provided about how many cars and trucks will come off of 421 through the neighborhood. It's all been looking at the numbers from the project itself. And that's not the issue to me. It's the having a connector street. So I say, if you have the authority, just designate it as, you're going to have the private driveway out the back, keep it the way it is, build it, but not have it be a public street. Don't dedicate it to the city. The city doesn't need it. And the city, if the city thinks this is needed for municipal purposes, wider purposes, you shouldn't have been offloading this onto an affordable housing project and then making them have to go hat in hand begging for funds that can't even be utilized for infrastructure like this. Anyway, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I think we've used up the 10 minutes. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak on this issue?
And Mr. Chair, it's in your discretion. If you want to extend the time, you certainly can.
Nobody else? Okay. All right, with that, I will close the public hearing. Was there any discussion amongst the board? I had a couple of questions for staff, but was there any? Okay, Christine?
I leaned over and asked Dennis, would this in fact qualify as a collector street? I don't believe it would. I don't think it meets the criteria to be designated as a collector street. Can anyone correct me?
I had a similar question, is what goes into the designation of this as a collector street? I mean, whether it's a collector street or just a regular neighborhood road, I mean, it's still going to have sidewalk on both sides.
Correct.
Potentially parking. I mean,
Arguably, because it's, in portions of it would only be 25 feet wide, it's not going to accommodate truck traffic.
As proposed, or?
The waiver that they're asking for would allow the right-of-way width to include between 25 feet to 30 feet of pavement. So that's not going to accommodate the level of through traffic that a collector street would be expected to accommodate.
Right. Well, I guess one of the questions that I heard was the concern about truck traffic. And Dennis, do you know what does the city, or does somebody know, what does the city currently do to police if they have truck traffic on neighborhood roads?
It would be a request or a complaint that there are trucks using the road, and it would be enforced according to the current standards. I mean, the trucks know to use 421 to go to Shipyard Boulevard to go to the port. I'm not saying they don't go down those roads, but the enforcement of the truck restrictions would be under the purview of the police department.
I had a question for staff. Jeff? Is there a code requirement that obligates this project to make a connection to Maryland? Is it a recommended in the comprehensive plan? What was the reason or the thought process behind that?
The newer code, there would be a requirement for it, but yeah, I think the road came about as a result of the traffic impact analysis, I believe. The applicant may be able to go into that further, but I think the reason we're looking at the road of this nature is because of the impact of this proposed multifamily that we haven't seen yet in relation to the PM or the AM and PM peak hour trips, I believe.
And if I might add to that, both the old code and the new code, if you're putting in a road, that road is required to connect to any stub. So that is, if they put a road in, it's got to connect.
Okay. And then with respect to the roadway, the Maryland stub, I guess, the dedication and acceptance, is Maryland, that stub has been properly dedicated as a street. I mean, there's a map reference on this plan. So can somebody, I guess, yes, please, Cindy, thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Cindy Wolf, and I was initially involved in the planning of the road and everything else. If you look on the website for the city of who maintains my streets, you'll find that Maryland Avenue, all of the streets within Sunset South and Maryland Avenue stubbed to this property line are shown in blue, which constitutes a city improved and maintained street, public street.
Okay. And it is a properly dedicated by map, the map
Yes,
reference
the
dedicates
record
it
plat
as-
for Sunset South had it as public right-of-way.
Okay. All right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, so I guess, as I understand, as a matter of procedure, we have 5 tasks. We have to approve the subdivision as a whole, and we have to approve each of the 4 variance requests, or we have to consider each of the 4 variance requests. Is that correct?
That's correct, unless one or more were withdrawn, in which case you wouldn't have to consider them, but
understand.
that has not formally happened.
Okay. Well, does anybody have any preferences to which one we consider first?
If you all could consider the waivers first, one at a time, and then do the subdivision as a whole at the end, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't believe that the applicant has sufficiently demonstrated the need to reduce the sidewalk width to 5 feet. So I would be willing to make a motion to entertain the other waivers excluding the decreased sidewalk width.
Okay, so that would be the first waiver, the standard residential collector street width of 60 feet. The waiver from the allow sidewalk to be installed at the back of the curb? Is that?
Number
Number
13. Oh, sorry, the third one.
On my page 2 of the staff report, it would be number 1, standard residential collector street right-of-way width. Not, number 2, yes, to allow sidewalk to be installed at the back of curb. Number 3 is for the reduction in sidewalk width. I don't feel that the applicant has.
That's the one that you're questioning, okay.
Yes, and then number 4, dealing with the non-municipal easement, elimination of a portion of that.
Yeah, I think they're all kind of related to one another. So I guess I'd like to hear any issues that we have with, in general, that we'd like further justification on, and then we can maybe pick them out. Is there any other concerns that the board has with the requested waivers?
Mr. Chair, maybe just a clarification from the applicant on the 4th waiver about the elimination of the non-municipal easement. Could you maybe point out on the map where that elimination occurs?
Sure. It's along the southern portion of the property. Ooh, I clicked on the wrong button. That wasn't good. So essentially from where the remnant parcel starts on one side to the remnant parcel on the other side. Sorry, there we go. There it's back. So from the remnant parcel on the west to the remnant parcel on the east.
Yeah. From point to point there of lot 3 and 4 is kind of where I see where it starts to
Correct.
disappear.
That's correct.
So lots 3 and 4, the frontage of lots 3 and 4, if they were somehow buildable, would have the required non-municipal.
That's correct.
Is that?
Right, and then, maybe just one other clarification. I think the purpose of the non-municipal easement is for dry utilities, right?
That's right. So I don't know what purpose the rest of the easement would provide there, but that's right, correct.
And you mentioned earlier that you thought that the dry utilities would be on the north side.
That's correct.
Understood. And I suppose I could, I guess if that the property to the south were to develop, there's nothing stopping them from dedicating non-municipal easement on their frontage if they had dry utilities necessary to serve that particular project. Right.
Okay, thank you.
That's right. And since I'm standing here, he did mention the fact that we had not said anything formally about withdrawing the request for the waiver with respect to the sidewalk width. And I think if that's okay with you, I'll go ahead and use this time to say that with respect to the sidewalk width, we'll remove that request at this point in time.
Okay. So does that mean that you're just going to make the sidewalk 6 feet wider and you're not going to add another foot to the width of the right-of-way? I mean, I don't want a reduction in the sidewalk width to take away from the ability to install the required landscaping and street trees. Do you see what I mean? I mean, they're all kind of connected to one another. I see that the right-of-way, and I can't exactly, just looking at it, it looked like the right-of-way starts off at 60 feet there by Carolina Beach Boulevard, and at some point it moves to 69 and then down to 68 and then back up to 69 and then back down to 60. So it sort of changes as it goes through, and I'm a little bit unclear as to, why can't it, if it needs to be 69, can it not just be 69 the whole way across, maintain that landscape area if it needs to be on the southern side to accommodate grade adjustment? I can understand that, but to take from a 5-foot sidewalk and make it from a 8-foot plaza to a 7-foot plaza just to add in an extra foot of sidewalk width doesn't make sense to me either. Do you follow what I'm saying?
And I follow what you're saying 100% too. And I would say that as far as adding the additional right-of-way on the south side where we have the ability to add it, we would have no objection to that. And effectively, because of the grading constraints we have where we are tight to the south, we would have to move, we would add the foot of sidewalk, but we would also have to, modify the design slightly to get that foot in there.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
So this, and I can't point, but the bottom area, the southern end of that portion of that right-of-way above where it says proposed Maryland Street extension, yeah, the flat part there, kind of how I'm envisioning the change would be the entire right-of-way would shift north by a foot.
Correct.
Right.
I agree.
But you would still abut the property to the south. Okay.
I agree.
I'm okay with that. Yeah. So if you're withdrawing waiver number 3.
I'll need to go back and check the list, but if that's the one with the sidewalk width, the answer
Okay,
is
yeah,
yes.
I understand. Okay. All right. So I believe we need to consider still need to get a vote on the other 3 waivers.
That's correct. And just for the record and for Madam Secretary, if Ms. Hughes, perfectly great for you to make all 3 motions, but if you'd make them individually, I get that they're related, and we will need, I'm calling it a finding of fact, but basically just some verbal support based on the evidence presented that supports each one. Thank you, ma'am.
I would make a motion to approve a waiver from the standard residential collector street right-of-way width of 60 feet because it supports on-street parking and street calming measures, traffic calming measures. To approve a waiver from the standard residential collector street cross-section to allow sidewalk to be installed at the back of curb to accommodate landscaping on the other side of that sidewalk area. And to approve the waiver from the standard residential collector street cross-section to allow for the elimination of a portion of the 10-foot non-municipal easement because that can be accommodated with a future connection if necessary.
Okay. I'm permitted to second, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I will add to the second one as far as I will second the motion and add to it that the back of curb allows for grade adjustment due to site constraints. And the fourth one, the applicant has indicated that there were no dry utilities proposed on the south side of the road as additional justification.
Ms. Hughes, do you accept those as amendments to your motion?
I do.
Okay. So do we vote on them individually, or can we vote on them in batch?
You need to do a voice vote on them individually.
Okay. So, all in favor of granting the first waiver from the standard residential collector street right-of-way of 60 feet due to the justification provided? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Passes. The second waiver from the standard residential collector street section to allow sidewalk at the back of curb. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, that passes. The third one was withdrawn by the applicant. The fourth one, waiver from the standard residential collector street cross-section to allow for the elimination of the 10-foot non-municipal easement. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that waiver is granted as well. And then I guess that brings us to the approval of the overall subdivision. And I guess I have another procedural question with that. There were recommended conditions provided by staff. Are those conditions tied to the approval of the subdivision or any of the waivers? I assume the subdivision, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Does anybody have any discussion about the overall subdivision? Anything we'd like to add as additional conditions or modifications to the conditions provided?
Mr. Chair, I'm in favor of the approval. However, I did want to point out that at the western side where Maryland Avenue matches up with the existing Stubb Street, that frontage along lot number 3, there appears to be a conflict between the proposed landscaping, trees, and the existing water main, and I suggest that that would be resolved at TRC.
Okay. So do I have a motion? To approve the overall subdivision?
I'll make a motion to approve the overall subdivision, that it's in the public interest and that the potential conflict with the landscaping on Lot 3 be resolved at the TRC process and subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Okay.
Second?
Second? All right. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Subdivision's approved. Is there anything further for this board? Committee?
I'm sorry, I want to let you all know that next month's meeting, March 16th, will be held in the Harrelson Room back across the street, the United Bank, Harrelson Building, United Bank Building. It's just in there for that 1 month, next month in March, due to some filming that's being handled here in Thalian Hall and council chambers. So just note that there will be a location change for next month.
Understood. Okay.
I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Okay. So with that, can adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
All right.
Yes, sir. Can't outrun Father Time.
Yep. I stopped by and looked at, I never can remember the name of your new nursery. Blooms and Branches.
Blooms and Branches, yes, sir.
Yeah, I stopped by and looked at the progress a couple of days ago. It's coming along.
It is, thank you, sir. We're already past the completion date that was proposed in the beginning, but I guess that's typical.
Will, is that going up on Oleander?
Yes, it's near Casey's Buffet.
Yeah, that's a great location.
Yeah, thank you. We're hopeful. We're hopeful.
Hey, Tom.
Good afternoon.
I'm going to mute Jim, but I'll be listening.
Okay.
Hello, Alana.
Hello, Alana.
And hello, Josh.
Hey, Joshua, before we get started, I have a longleaf pine question for you. You there?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Have you seen any fairly large old longleaf pines that are dying due to a bark beetle infestation?
Yeah, I see a lot of Fusarium sublinguatulans as well. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's a pine pitch canker. And you mostly find it in like the juvenile stages of longleaf pine, but for some reason it's in a lot of the mature longleaf pines around Wilmington. And so I see kind of like the trees start to show signs of this fungi, and the way you can tell is that it's a pine pitch canker, so it pushes sap out. The fascicle holds the needles to the twig,
Right.
so they turn kind of gray looking. And so I see trees suffering from that, and then I see like black turpentine and ips and things like that move in, because I think the trees are stressing and secreting, like a chemical signal that those engraving, I think those are really engraving weevils. So they're like picking up the chemical signal and girdling the tree and finishing it off. But a lot of times there's like signs of stress from fungi before the trees get any kind of beetles or insects.
Do you see it in any particular regions of the city or the county?
There's lots of them I'm seeing a lot of them at UNCW campus. I've treated a few of them and I've had mixed results. And just anywhere where there's stands of longleaf, all longleaf pines spread through all out town, all over, not in one specific place.
Okay. Yeah, I've visited a couple of longleaf at a couple of friends' homes that have died recently, and I just talked to someone else who had a couple in his backyard dying, and the ones I've looked at, it was black turpentine beetle, which usually you get a relatively minor infestation of turpentine beetle and it doesn't hurt the tree, but these rascals were going way up the bowl and enough work in the below the bark that they were girdling it and killing it.
Yeah, there's lots of different types of black turpentine beetles are the largest, and they inhabit the lower sections of the trees where there's different types of ips, but the insects are specific to like one part of the plant most of the time as well. So you see the big holes at the bottom because you're standing on the ground and it's what's visible, but a lot of time there's multiple different engraving weevils in a tree at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I first moved to Wilmington, I pruned a pine tree and it had that pine pitch canker in it, and I hadn't seen it before, so I sent samples off to Chuck Hodges, who's the NC State Extension Agency plant pathologist, and so he had identified that fungus in that sample. That's the only reason I know what it is.
Jim, did you send that email to Melissa because she was also not on?
Yeah, I'm going to do it.
We both went back to our previous meeting email and tried it, and so she was on with me.
Should we call the meeting to order, or are we waiting for someone else? I'm waiting for Melissa. I had to send her the correct link. While we're waiting for her, let me go ahead and call the meeting to order. We'll have a quorum by the time Melissa logs in with us. What I'd like to do first, and Kathy, if you will open your video, I'd like to introduce a new member of the tree commission, Kathy Luna, who...
Joshua, excuse me, Joshua, you get some feedback.
Oh, sorry.
Kathy was appointed some time ago, but she and Craig and I just learned of her appointment this past week. We'll get back to that in a few minutes. So Kathy, welcome, and if you'd like to tell us a little about yourself and your professional experience, we'd like to hear from you. Unmute.
Hi. Let me unmute.
Okay.
Hi, I've lived in Wilmington since '91. I live in Carolina Place. I have a couple of businesses downtown, an advertising agency, an online consignment store, a personal organization, and I have one son at Hoggard, one at Isaac Bear, and have been very active in Wilmington and was with WDI in the Municipal Service District for quite a few years.
Welcome. We're glad to have you. Okay, just a brief review of the agenda, and then I'll put that away. We'll review the minutes from November and from January, get an update from Connie, and if Aaron's able to join us, get an update on his activities. And then you see, I want to revisit an issue with, and I said bylaws, but rules of procedure. Discuss a little bit more about our Arbor Day activities and a couple of the things that we mentioned at the last, and I'm not sharing the screen. There we are. So let me get the minutes up. Okay, there are the edited, sorry, Elena, minutes of our November meeting. Are there any needed revisions or additions to those minutes from anyone? If not, those minutes stand approved. And then the January minutes, again, are there any, does anyone know of any additions? I hope if you had a chance to read them.
Jim,
Yeah, go
those
ahead.
look like January 21.
Should be January, it should state January 22 because I wasn't present on the January 21 meeting.
It's just a typo.
Might be a
It's just a
typo.
Yeah,
typo.
well, yeah, the meeting was on the 20th.
22. All right.
Oh, there, 20, yeah, 20. okay.
2022.
All right, got it, yeah. I'm slow today, yeah. Any other changes that need to make to this draft? Okay, those minutes stand approved.
All in favor, say aye.
That's not necessary. I think. we
Why
mentioned-
not? Why not? Just be
Because
curious.
Robert's rules don't require it, at least the version that I have.
Well, you don't have to pull it out, just curious.
Okay, yeah.
Jim, hang on, we actually have somebody that can help us. Melissa, can you help us a little process on that? Do we need to vote when it comes to minutes?
You don't. Other boards do vote, just to have it on the record, but that's entirely up to the chair, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Connie, an update on all that's going on with the Alliance for Cape Fear Trees.
Well, I was in Mexico last week, so I don't know. Yes.
Well, let me give a quick update
I will.
on the
Yeah, I
tree
was gonna
giveaway
say,
that
yeah,
happened
do
this
that.
past
You do that.
Saturday.
Yeah.
We had 595 trees that were donated by Worthington Farms Nursery, which is located outside of Greenville. And these trees were, and they were 3 and 5 gallon trees in containers. They were donated because they were basically culls, what the manager of Worthington Farms called park trees or forest trees, trees that they cull out and do not put into their standard wholesale tree sale. So a lot of these needed substantial pruning and cleanup, which I and a number of volunteers did on Friday when they were unloaded. And like every other tree giveaway we've had, they all went. Folks were glad to get them. And we had a number of individuals of a American elm cultivar called Princeton, and a number of these rascals grow very rapidly. There were 3 gallon trees that were 8 and 10 feet tall and bent over into U-shaped curves. And what we did with those was basically just top them at about waist high. The people still took them, so we got them in the hands of people who like trees. Connie, so go ahead.
Significantly, this was held at Warner Temple AME Zion Church on Nixon Street. And from everything that was reported to me, it was very successful, Jim. But it was also of interest that there were a lot more diversity of people coming to get the trees than we ordinarily get. We always get a nice group, but we were glad that with this donation of trees, we were able to hold it there at the church. And Councilman and Reverend Barnett was there, and I understand very excited about having an event, and offers anytime that we want to utilize the church parking lot or the church meeting rooms or things, he's happy to have people come into that part of the city and get to know it. So I think that was a big plus for us in addition to the trees.
Hey, Connie, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And I'm kind of setting you up to hit this one out. Was there a particular reason why that location was chosen in the north side of the city?
Well, yeah, because, the north side is one of the tree equity problems that we have here. The tree equity maps show which parts of the city and which sections of the city have the most trees and which do not, which need more. And the south side that we did last year, we planted a lot last year, was probably the lowest of the tree equity scores. And then the north side was the next lowest. So we've been working in those areas and need to continue to go back to them to continue to increase the canopy in those areas. So that's why we chose it. Thanks for the tree equity kind of thing.
Yeah. It was interesting how effective the advertising has been, because we had several folks from Leland, which we were still happy to give them a couple of trees.
We had a lady there yesterday, I heard from Allison. There was a lady who, I heard it first from Marion and then from Allison, who came down from Beaufort.
Is that right?
To get the one fringe tree that had already been committed to somebody at the church. So yeah, we do. She had heard that way too. So we get people from Southport arriving at 7 o'clock before these things, coming up to get trees. So yeah, it's not just right here in Wilmington. We get a lot of folks from the vicinity all around who hear about it and come to get trees. Just finishing up with that, we are helping the city out by doing the planting of the Trees Forever. We took over Trees Forever as far as the administrative of it. Trees Forever being the memorial trees or in honor of people or celebrations. And we had 14 of those this year, this season to plant. So we are planting those on Friday, and we just had a couple of people drop out. Jim's helping. We've broken into 4 different groups to hit all 4 parts of the city where trees are to be planted. So we had a couple of dropouts. We're still looking for some help on Friday, Jim. So if you know anybody who's willing to help out for a couple of hours on Friday to get these trees in the ground, we appreciate it. City staff does just not have the wherewithal to get this done. So we are continuing to work with them on also what I mentioned last time, working with the community services folks to try to get an agreement in place for us to be more helpful to them in the pruning and watering and taking care of some of the things that they're just unable to do. I did get connected with Trees Durham, which I understand has a really good program that the folks at North Forest Council thinks ought to be a model. So I'm going to hopefully bring that up the next time when we have our meeting, Jim, and maybe get it posted in the box.
What time on Friday?
It's not,
What time on Friday is
the tree planting? Oh, good, Tom. It's at 10 o'clock, back, probably 10 to 12. If you're willing to help, I'd love it.
Sure.
Okay. What I'm going to do is give your name to one of the people, Tom, and I have your email address. I think I sent, we got that on the list. And if you can do that, that'd be great. We'll let you join. There's 1 of 2 groups that need an extra person. So I'll let you know which one that is. Okay. We'll be thrilled. Thank you so much. Other than that one, we have another tree distribution of 800 trees with Verizon coming up February the 26th at Legion Stadium. And then again, this is repeat what I said last week, but it's getting closer. And then we have the last of the tree distributions here in Wilmington is on the 12th of March. That is 1,500 plus trees. That is with Sage Shore Insurance. they are very excited. I had a Zoom with them yesterday, and the Arbor Day Foundation folks, they're flying in marketing people from Cincinnati. They are serious. They are coming in to help us with trees in Wilmington, and they're excited about, in fact, we are doing a professional video, which they afforded for us, but to be able to get interviews with their people, with the insurance people, and the residents who are coming to get trees to talk about what happened to their trees and why they need them and what kind of state they're in. So that's going to be, that's a lot of trees. So to keep that on the calendar and talk it up. So people will have those. We do have one that we're helping with that we are actually the sponsors for, and that's in Riegelwood on April the 2nd. It's going to be Columbus County. It's going to be at the old schoolhouse that's right there in Delco as you drive through on the right. So that's where we're going to be giving out about 1,000 trees there on April the 2nd. Lloyd Singleton with the Arboretum is providing his van for those of us to go up there to help that day. But the volunteers are coming from the Extension Service in Columbus County and all of their connections and so forth. So we're going up to kind of help them know what to do when we get there. So that's another Arbor Day sponsored. And I think that's a Verizon too, but I haven't gotten confirmation on who that is yet. And so then we have, other than that, after all the plantings and the giveaways, we've got 5 tabling events that we need to get coverage for that are between March and April. So we'll be working on those too, with various sustainability kinds of things. But I should say, this is the 150th anniversary of Arbor Day and coming up this year. And so Arbor Day is really celebrating. A lot of our banners and things are going to have 150th anniversary on them. And so we're actually doing a couple, one of the March 12th is in North Carolina Arbor Day week. So that's one of our things, but we're also doing a fundraiser at Wrightsville Beach Brewery on March the 16th, day before St. Patrick's Day. So it's a green day. So put it on your calendar and come to Wrightsville Beach Brewery and hug a tree. We're going to have one of those too. That's all, Jim, unless you have questions.
All right. Thank you, Connie. And
Hey, Jim, this
Yeah,
is
go
Will,
ahead.
and I think Connie knows this, but the free trees from Worthington Farms, I discovered that they were going to cull those out, basically throw those away. So I'm sorry I was not at the giveaway to take a look at them for health reasons, but if they are of what we would say acceptable quality, that can be an annual or semi-annual thing for us to get those trees for free. And just to add a little background for those that don't know, they are what we call a tree liner supplier, whereas tree farmers like us will buy the 3-gallon or 5-gallon from this source. And these trees are just, not, as Connie knows, and you know, Jim, they're not top grade A quality. So they basically get thrown away. So if the group feels like this is, acceptable quality for us to give away, I can make sure that we get these trees year after year instead of them being thrown away.
Well, by all means, we had to do a lot of pruning and shaping, but like I said, even some of those just tall, spindly things that just bent over into a U shape, that I just topped them at waist high. Everyone I talked to, I started trying to explain to them, they'll be fine. New branches will, I know all about that. I'll take it. So we did not, we had to do a lot of pruning and shaping, but it was well worth it.
And thanks for your efforts. And I had a lot of trepidation as to whether or not this would work out, but I know Todd well, the owner of Worthington Farms, and I knew if the way he described it, I could put a lot of faith in what he was saying. So we weren't entirely flying blind, but I did have some hesitation, but I'm glad to hear it worked out.
Yeah.
Thanks for your efforts to prune them up. I'm sorry for health reasons I wasn't able to be there to help.
Yeah, well, one issue we had is that many of the trees weren't marked as to their species or cultivar, and of course Todd just apologized all over the place for that, and they got mixed up in the truck a little bit, and so I had to do some a little bit of guessing sometimes on some of the species that were in the wrong block when we finally got them out. But again, I had red oaks in a group, and the maple, we had 4 different cultivars of maples, but they weren't marked, and we simply told folks, these are all great cultivars, they're all well adapted here, and the maples all went very fast. There were lots of folks who wanted a red maple, so it worked out well.
Yeah, we thank you, Will. Will brought that up to me, and really, really appreciate you doing that. I think it went over nicely, especially in that, in that location and utilizing the church. It was something we really wanted to do. And I will point out to Worthington Farms, who gave us those, is also, we are purchasing for March 12th. So we have trees coming back from them, those 1,500 trees. Us were coming back for them for March the 12th. So, and I don't think it really mattered whether we were purchasing those trees or not. It was, they just were happy to help us out with these trees that we were able to give away last weekend. So I also want to point out, Judge has sent a chat to remind me that they have a lot of big oaks for us to hug on the 16th. So, thank you, Judge, we appreciate it.
All right, thank you. Sure thing. Aaron, I see that you just joined us. Any interesting update from your group?
Yeah, I can give you a quick update. I apologize for any background noise. I'm in the truck right now. But the Urban Forestry Master Plan is moving along. We're at a pretty good spot with the tree inventory. That's gone very well so far. Quite a bit more trees in the project area than we realized. So we may have to switch gears here a little bit. The number of trees was pretty distinctly underestimated by Davey, unfortunately. So we gotta switch gears and see what we can work out there. Actually have another update meeting tomorrow morning. If Jim, if you and Connie have not already been contacted by the Davey team, you will be in regard to them participating in a meeting with the Tree Commission and the Alliance as stakeholder groups for input from both of those groups. There'll be some other groups that they'll be reaching out to as well, but just so the two of y'all are aware, they will be contacting you at some point.
Okay, good.
Before too much longer. Trees, we are basically down to 2 people on our tree crews. Have a couple of prospects in the works, but nothing absolutely concrete right now. We've actually been borrowing a couple of people from right-of-way crews that have been helping us out for the last few weeks, just because it's their slow season. But as soon as growing season kicks off and they get ramped back up, we'll lose those too. So hopefully we will have some full-time tree people, new people on staff by the time that kicks off, so we don't get too far behind. Contract with Davey Tree for 24 tree removals and removing grinding associated stumps. Hopefully we'll kick off next month. I believe it was approved. That contract should have been approved by council last night. So we just have to get all the contract paperwork and everything routed so we can get them started. First phase of tree planting came back, got the bids back for that. So we've got to run through paperwork to get the contractor started on that. There'll probably be a very small phase 2 come shortly after. I'm trying to put that together just to get a few more in the ground this season. The second phase will not be very extensive. So we will, just due to a lot of factors, we will be very behind on our usual tree planting numbers. So if you hear word get around, there's probably going to be, actually there will be quite a few people that are expecting to get trees this fall. That it's just not going to happen. They're just not, we're not able to get to it this planting season. But we will still have all those locations and those requests in the queue to be gotten to as soon as we can. So we'll see what that looks like going forward into next season. Right now, that's probably about it right now for anything major, day to day.
Hey, Aaron, what did the tree inventory look like? How many trees were inventoried?
Davey had 5,000 with the budget, and we have exhausted the 5,000 locations and need probably that many more. So we're got to figure something out. Budget ran out, and I said the budget was with their RFP, their estimate. They had 5,000 trees in the budget. Thought that would cover the 1945 corporate limits, but it was not even close. So that's what we've got to sort out going forward.
Okay, thanks, Aaron. Any other questions for Aaron? Sounds like he and his small group are extremely busy.
Yeah, just on the tree planting, is it the result of lack of personnel to plant, or is it the result of lack of trees to plant?
Mainly just staffing issues. Of course, Bridget, our supervisor, retired. He was always the one that put together the tree list. So I was trying to do what I could to get the list together and contract together in his absence, but just severe lack of personnel and having to spread effort.
Can anybody volunteer, or does it have to be a city employee to support that?
Yeah, right now it's not really anything we could do with volunteers, unfortunately.
Okay. Just a thought.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the thought, but yeah, like I said, unfortunately, right now it's not anything we can do with volunteers. So.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Yep.
I want to briefly revisit the rules of procedure. See if I can get it up so everyone can see it. There's been an issue with the way folks have been appointed to the tree commission that's been somewhat vexing to me. And I realized in reading back through the rules of procedure that the city clerk is basically following what's spelled out in our rules of procedure. A couple of examples. Well, when I was appointed, well, let me go back here for just a moment. On appointments. Okay, this paragraph says each voting member shall hold office for a term of not more than 3 years, and then of course 2 terms. But what has happened in the way the city clerk has been appointing folks, no one, and that included me, has had a first term that was a full 3 years. And a couple of recent examples, Melissa was appointed, the appointment letter was dated March 18th, 2021, to fill a vacancy for a term to expire on June 18th, 2022. So her first term only slightly more than a year. And we really don't know what happened to Kathy's appointment. Her appointment letter was dated November 19th, 2020, to fill a vacancy for a term to expire on June 18th, 2022. And so she originally had slightly over 2 years total in her first appointment, but for some reason, this appointment letter did not get out to her or to me on a fairly prompt fashion. And the clerk sent it to Ron Satterfield last week, which then went to Craig and to Kathy. So now she only has what, 4 months left in her first term. So when you look at it on how this is spelled out in our rules of procedure, this is a sentence I've never quite understood. And with your experience with this, Connie, maybe you can help us, and Melissa, please jump in. Each member shall hold office until his or her successor is appointed. So that can mean that someone could serve indefinitely based on the vacancies that we've had, because we've had some vacancies that have been open for as much as 8 or 9 months. Is that your take on that sentence, Melissa?
Yes, that is correct. And I will tell you all that this has been a problem, not just with your commission, but in the last maybe 6 months, we've had issues with Planning Commission, the Historic Preservation Commission, and the Loan Review Board in making sure that staff liaisons as well as the boards themselves know when someone's coming on or off of the board. So what we're doing, and James, if I can, that sentence and much of what you have in the appointments section of your rules of procedure is based on a policy that is a city policy. That's the way it's worded in that policy, so it's beyond our purview to change it within our rules of procedure. So what we're trying to do internally as staff is keep track of, like, for example, with my boards, and this would be one of them now, I am going to keep track of when an appointment comes up to the Appointments Commission, because those go to City Council for approval. So for example, I think there was an Appointments Commission meeting and report presented last night to City Council. That way we can at the very least informally discuss with our new members as well as the current members that someone is going to be transitioning on or off of the board. So it's not just you all that this is affecting. I don't know if it's because of COVID and so many remote meetings. I'm not really sure what has happened in the last 6 months or so to cause this problem.
Well, how does the appointment process actually work?
Okay. So if anyone is interested in joining a board or commission, there's an application that they fill out with the city clerk. Right. And you all as board members, you may know someone who would be good for this board. You can actually recommend that person to Craig or myself, and we can try to help them fill out that application, or at least find it on the website. And then the appointments committee meets at least once a month to consider all applications and vote on them accordingly. After the appointments committee meets, it goes to full council for a vote.
Well, that recruiting process that you just mentioned is what we've been doing. Tom Bolin is a good example. But once that application, and I know Ms. Spicer Sidbury reiterated, that we should use the online version, and that's what we've, told everyone to use. But then sometimes it goes for months after that application is submitted before the individual is finally appointed. So why is that? And I mean, as much as 5 or 6 months. So why do we have that lag time?
That I cannot explain. The appointments committee, they're made up of 3 members of city council. They decide which applications they're going to review and when. I'm not sure how that works between them, amongst themselves. I do know, like I said, with the lag time with Ms. Luna, for example, and her appointment becoming known to us, that is something that we as staff are very concerned about. We're embarrassed that it happened that way, and we're doing everything we can to address it internally and also work with the clerk's office and make sure that we're following her procedures as well, because she has a set number of procedures that she follows. Okay, so in the future, can we deputize Craig to follow up on applications that have gone for a couple of months so we haven't heard anything? Yes, absolutely. We can inquire as staff. We can definitely inquire with the clerk on when these appointments are going to be going before the appointments committee. And if I'm not mistaken, those are open meetings as well with the appointments committee. So we may be able to tune in now that we're doing all of these via Zoom, if possible. And I'll definitely report back and let you all know that information.
Would you, just by email, give me the names of the folks who are on the appointments committee? Who is the chair of that committee now?
The new chair is Councilmember Charlie Rivenbark.
Okay.
He was recently made the chair, I believe, in either December or January.
Is Margaret Haynes still on there, or is she off now?
She has transitioned off. She was the chair up until Councilmember Rivenbark.
Right. Okay. I will add that when I was chair some years ago now, it's pretty much the same. It hasn't changed a lot. And I would approach the committee chair, like Margaret, who was there, and say, Margaret, we've had applications in, and she would not know anything about them. The hang up was in the clerk's office then. I don't know what it is there, but the procedure in the clerk's office was lacking. So just say.
Hey, Melissa, I got a question, if you don't mind. And Kathy, I hope you don't mind if I use you as an example. Let's just say we don't chase Kathy away and she's like, I really would like to continue to be on the board. Her term ends June of this year, but she's only served 4 or 5 months. So certainly she isn't into that 3-year max. How does she go about getting her name back into the circulation?
I think Craig, as staff, would need to bring that up to the clerk and to the actual appointments committee. So I would suggest CCing Councilmember Rivenbark, as he's the chairperson, to bring this up, because you're right, Ms. Luna has not had the opportunity to serve a full first term, even though it sounds like she was appointed for a full term, not to fill in for someone who had resigned or transitioned off.
Well, I've got a couple of questions there. When my reappointment came up last summer, I got an email from the clerk requesting that I submit an application, which I did, and then she reappointed me. But I had thought that reappointments for a second term were automatic unless the individual declined and let the clerk know. So there's a disconnect there in that procedure, and I'd like for us to, if you and Craig could work with Councilman Rivenbark and the clerk's office and try to get some standard procedure that we all know how it's supposed to work. That would be really helpful.
And Mr. Gregory, I think the reason that a new application is required is because, you have a residency requirement as a part of your commission as well. And so that is a way for us to document that everyone reappointed is still eligible to be on the commission.
Okay. Well, if that's the standard practice, then Craig and I will make sure when terms are near expiration that we encourage that individual to either reapply or to let us know that they don't plan to be reappointed. The other sentence I wanted to bring up with you is this last sentence then on the section on vacancies, and this is basically what the clerk has been doing. Any members appointed to fill vacancies shall serve until the expiration of the term of the vacant position. So basically, everyone that's been appointed since I've been a member has been appointed to a vacant position, and not in any case have they been able to have a full 3-year first term. Now, again, is this city policy for all boards and commissions the way this is done?
No, the city policy states that if someone is appointed to fill a vacancy, that partial term will not count against them for their 2 full terms that they're allowed to have by policy. And I can share that policy with the group. I can email that to you all tomorrow after we're finished meeting. So You'll have that for your records, because it applies to all boards and commissions of the city.
Well, why does a member have to be appointed to fill a vacancy? Why can't a member just be appointed to a full 3-year first term? I mean, there is a vacancy, but why does the appointment, why is the appointment made to that unexpired portion of that vacancy?
And that's probably because they try to stagger the appointments so that you don't have a completely new commission coming on at any given time. So I would, and I've not looked into the specifics with your commission, but I would imagine that is why, because you'll have a vacant position that is staggered deliberately so that you don't have new members filling the board.
Yeah, okay. But if someone, like in Kathy's position, is it a city policy then that she could be reappointed to 2 3-year terms, since she's only getting a very, very short first term?
Now, that will depend on whether she was appointed to fill a vacancy for a less than the 3-year term, or if she was appointed to go ahead and do her first 3-year term. If we can persuade Councilmember Rivenbark and the Appointments Committee, we may be able to get that policy altered to allow her an exception here, because this is such an unusual circumstance. But that's something we'll have to look into as staff.
Yeah, obviously the clerk's office is tracking these positions, and you know, we've had several vacancies that were the result of folks resigning, which then, you know, left a portion of that term open. We had 3 people last year who reached the end of their second term, and we all assumed that they were no longer a member. But if you go back to this sentence, does that mean that they could have continued to be a member until?
I did. For
You
next year.
Yes.
Extra year.
Okay.
And that's part of the city policy as well. They don't, you know, oftentimes we don't have qualified folks who are applying to be a part of these volunteer boards. So rather than leaving our boards short with members, the current members are allowed to continue past their expiration date until they are replaced. Okay, all right. So that helps me to understand this procedure a lot better. But it seems to me, and maybe just Craig and I visiting with the city clerk, to get our hands around each of these appointments and the terms, and just to understand how she's tracking it. Because, you know, obviously when she appoints someone, she's appointing them to an unexpired vacancy. I mean, that's been the routine that we have seen. And those appointments go to city council for full approval.
Right.
So that's how I can access prior years worth of appointments, because I can check where the Appointments Committee has made a presentation and report to council, and council votes on it fully.
Okay.
So we can also access that information without having to set up in a meeting with the clerk. Okay, excellent. Because I'd like for Craig and I to arrange a meeting with you, because if there is a matrix, for example, in my case, does the record of appointments show, because I was appointed to fill a portion of a term of someone before me, well, do those appointment records show who that was and what that term was? Do you know? What goes in front of council does not. The city clerk would have that detailed information. Right. But we can definitely get together, Craig and yourself and we can get together and you know, figure out the next step in coordinating with the city clerk on making sure we know who is coming on and off of the commission. I would really like to do that, because I have just been really kind of clueless as to how this procedure works. So it's really been helpful to have you join us. So basically these 2 sentences that I raised an issue about are fine the way they are. We just need to understand better how the process is handled from the city council and the clerk's office. Yes, sir. And I think we also have found that we as staff there needs to be a set of checks and balances in place to make sure that no one's falling through the cracks, and that we all know what's going on and we're all on the same page. And
Excellent.
we're working on that.
Okay. All right.
So I have a question. If someone unsolicited applies for a board, does that board get notified that someone has applied?
No, I don't believe that the board gets any kind of notification. That application would go to the committee, the appointments committee of city council.
Good point, Tom, because when an application goes in, I would like to get a copy of it. I would like to know who's in the pipeline.
Okay. Well, those would be public record. We could broach that subject with the clerk and find the most efficient way to get that information, if it is possible, because it would be public record. It would be something we should be able to get.
Okay. So, yeah, but like I said, the way, we have, when we've had openings, we have actively worked, to recruit good folks like Tom to join us. And what I have done unofficially in each of those cases is ask those folks, when you submit that application, send me a copy so I'll know when you submitted it. So we're trying to track that as best we can.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Melissa, for.
Yeah, thank you, Melissa. I'm just trying to, from a board perspective, understand, if there is someone who gets appointed and then goes through the whole process, but we're not aware of it, and then all of a sudden we find, oh, this person is just joined the board, that's great. We have another person, but we, sort of got surprised along the way.
Sure, and you don't know their credentials or anything like that. I completely understand.
Yeah.
And I appreciate y'all including me on the board on this meeting tonight. And if you want me to appear at other meetings, just let me know. If you've got questions or
If
let
we got
Craig
questions
know.
that you can answer, you will be cordially invited, believe me.
Absolutely, and then Craig always knows how to get up with me. So.
All right, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yes, and thank you for.
As long as we got Melissa, did you have any insight on progress of our rules of procedure?
Well, I'm talking with the city manager's office right now. Usually, in some cases, the rules of procedure have gone through the governance committee first before going to city council. I'm not sure they have to follow that path because we're not a quasi-judicial board like Board of Adjustment, so that we may be able to be a little more relaxed in how we handle these rules of procedure. So I'm still working with the city manager's office on that, but I'm expecting we should have them fully approved in March.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, one procedure question. Do you need an official version that's got the chair and the secretary's signatures? I presume?
Yes.
You do.
Yes, we will need that, yes.
Okay, well, we'll get that done.
Thank
you. Yeah. Okay, I just want to circle back to Arbor Day activities. We've got a lot going on that are related to Arbor Day. And Connie's already mentioned several things that ACFT is doing. I would like to figure out some way to get those activities publicized. Craig, do you think if I wrote something, or if someone else here wrote something for a press release, that we could get the city's public relations department to do that, or how should we go about that?
Jim, I'm going to say, without having gone through that process, I believe so, but I'll be glad to figure that out. But I think they would love to share. And I saw at least a press release that came through the city in regards to that planting, last weekend. And I was like, I wonder how they got that. But
We do that. It goes through the city. It goes through community services. It's from that office, and it goes into the, they communicate. We tell them what's going on, and because we're working with the city anyhow, so that they send all that stuff through the city. And then our own publicity person who gets it out to the media as well. And I forgot to say, one of the things we are doing, Jim, in regard to that, is we are working with Cape Fear Garden Club and Trask Middle School.
Yeah.
To do a tree planting on the 18th, I believe, 18th of March. It's that week, anyhow, that Friday.
Yeah, I think Sherry was working with that.
That's, no, well, you know, Cheryl Hunter, who is the chair of the Arbor Day from Cape Fear Garden Club, and I put that together.
Okay.
Okay.
Could you send me just a brief email, just with a very brief description
Sure.
of that activity?
Sure.
Greg, I want to put you in touch with Margie Herring. She's a public relations specialist, operates a public relations firm, and she does all the contacts with media for ACFT. And maybe you can get a little bit of training from her on her media contacts, so that you could do what she has done in the past.
I think Melissa can probably tell that. I think any kind of thing that goes out through the city goes through the city media specialists, as opposed to out directly. So that's what you do, is you give it to them and they get it out. Am I correct?
They get it out.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am, you are. Yeah.
It goes through Dylan Lee through the city.
Okay, well, Craig and I will work on that. The New Ann Arbor County Big Tree Contest, the idea of a big tree contest that we talked about last time. What I need is a couple of folks to serve on a committee to plan how to do that, and let's get it started. Do I have any volunteers? Because I have difficulty delegating, and I'm trying very, very hard to delegate and not do all this stuff myself.
Jim, what's your timeline and what are your thoughts on like what you're thinking for this kind of thing? Generally, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, what's the scope of work, so to speak, so that we can understand, how much time is going to be involved, and also, and what type of resources are required.
Yeah, well.
You should probably put it in writing, Jim.
Yeah.
Some smart people on here tonight.
Well, I had this bright idea, but when you start talking about the practicality of how you're going to actually do it, let me think about like and put something together to send out to y'all that sort of puts some flesh behind this bright idea.
Jim, this is Aaron.
Yeah.
I was not, unfortunately, I was not able to make the last meeting, but regarding that, I have a question. This being is intended to be a program of the Tree Commission?
Yeah.
Okay, and you're doing it countywide?
Yep.
That's very much outside the scope of the Tree Commission.
Okay.
This probably needs to be a conversation, a program of a separate entity, not the Tree Commission.
Because it's countywide versus within the city.
It's countywide. If you did it just inside the city limits, similar to the some of the tree awards and the heritage trees and stuff like that, you could probably do it that way. But if you want to do it countywide, that's definitely going to be outside of your scope.
Okay.
It seems like to me we ought to stick with, I'm sorry, not even all, but it seems like to me we haven't done heritage trees in forever, and you're talking about doing something else. So
yes,
heritage tree is what we're supposed to be doing with the city.
Yeah, and that's the next thing on my list, and maybe this idea of the big tree contest, which you table for a moment, and get the heritage tree program up and running the way it should be.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that it's a bad idea, Jim. I'm just saying I think it's outside the bounds of the Tree Commission.
Yeah, no, yeah, you're right about that. But the heritage tree program is it's sort of languished during the last couple of years, and I'm not gonna make any excuses about COVID, but we need to get it up and running again. Elena has agreed to sort of oversee this, but I would like to actually make this a formal committee with Elena as the chair and at least one other person to work with her. Do I have a volunteer? This is going to take some effort to get it reorganized and up and running again.
Jim, can you flesh out a little bit more what you're looking for and expecting?
Well, it's I'm not quite sure at this point.
So what was the heritage tree program in the past?
First of all, getting it publicized that we are accepting applications for this year, And that's something that, you know, would need to go out through the city's public relations department.
I think it's already on the website. Excuse me, Craig. I think it's already on the website to define what it is and how we apply when it's open. But if not, it should be in some of the materials that are online that have been saved historically, because certainly I probably even have it.
Yeah, well, there's a brief description of it on our website. But I think, you know, some kind of publicity just to let people know that the program exists and that we're accepting applications for some specific time period this year. And then how do we go about, you know, the recent heritage trees that we have approved? How do we go about getting those into the database? So Craig, would you check with the GIS folks and find out exactly, if you can, how that database is managed and who we need to talk to about updating it?
One of our interns did that,
Yep.
did the database. So that's how it got on the city website. So
And it may be that we might need to find another student with some GIS skills to help us get it updated.
Connie,
I
when
think
was
it's
it
been,
last updated?
I think it was updated since it went on originally, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Anthony had some students who did quite a bit of work with it several years ago.
Yeah, Jim, I don't think that any heritage trees have been added to the list since that was updated, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
When was it updated? First time?
It was
Probably 4 years ago.
it was put on there about 4 years ago, but I think it's been updated since then to some degree.
Yeah. So Craig, if you could find out, Anthony Snyder gave me a spreadsheet and also a Word table that had all the trees up until I can't remember what year now. But is there someone in the city GIS department who is maintaining that database? Or if not, what do we do to get the database updated and get it to them and get the GIS map updated?
Is it just a matter of input?
It's been updated. It just needs to know who's dealing with it now.
Yeah, who's dealing with it now? Who's managing it? And of course, we've got the trees that we recently approved from this past year that we need to add to it.
Kathy, you asked a question. I mean, just to give you a loop on it, what we do is we've got data by longitude, latitude outside of the city's GIS system. We just need to get it into the city, but we want to figure out who that is. And apparently we need to update 4 years worth of potential heritage stuff.
Well,
Not anything has been done in the last 4 years, not to worry about it.
Yeah.
So what are we updating then if we don't have anything to update?
You're not. Jim is being hopeful, but I don't think there's anything to update, so.
Yeah. Yeah, I know basically Connie is saying that no one in the city has a day. Well, the map is still available on the city's GIS system. So somebody in the GIS section at least knows about it, hopefully. So that's basically my concern is we figure out, where our database stands, if someone's responsible for it and maintaining it, and then how do we go about updating it.
But I'm hearing we don't have actually anything to update.
Let me just say, the issue is, I don't think that we have, and Aaron, if you're still on, you can verify this because he has to go check the heritage trees. I don't think there have been any heritage trees selected and approved in the last 4 years.
Oh, we approved several recently.
I'm not aware, so I'm not on this commission, so I'm not sure about that. But maybe Aaron can clarify, because he has to approve them.
Yeah, I don't recall having approved and through county. I know there's been some discussion also on that, not all having reviewed and approved any. I could be wrong about that, but at any rate, I think right now just need to identify who with City of GIS would be in charge of updating that if need be. That be the starting point. And then if we do have trees that need to be added, we can pass that information along and have them added.
Okay, so at this point, Craig, if you wouldn't mind making a phone call to the GIS section and see if anyone there knows about the Heritage Tree database and if they're actually know where it is and what it would take to us to wrap our hands around it. Great.
And Jim, if you have a list of trees that you think of, the ones that you say have been approved recently, if you could send me that list, just so I can see what it is. It may jog my memory if it's something I've already looked at and possibly forgotten about.
Okay, all right, yeah, you and I need to touch base on that. Okay. All right, any other new business that we need to discuss at this point?
So back to the heritage trees.
Yeah.
You were saying that we want to reintroduce this program. And so therefore, we probably need to market it and get more information out to do that. So I guess my question is that Alana, are you going to be leading that, or is that, or I don't know what, I mean, Jim, you said that Alana was going to be working with it, so I don't know what exactly she's planning to do and what support she needs. So I know Kathy was also wanted to chime in too, so I'll be quiet and let everybody else talk.
I mean, who has the, is it already listed on the city site?
Yes, it is listed on the city site, but I would like to get some publicity out to, because very, very few people know about that city site. It's well hidden.
Okay, could somebody forward me the information, because I don't know where it's buried, and I'm happy to write a press release and send it out.
I just put it in the chat, the link to the Heritage Tree Program. It looks like the deadline that we have posted is September 30th, 2020.
Woohoo!
So, but the objectives and everything are on there. And as for a plan, I do not have one, but I am willing and as able as, I can be to help out or do whatever we need to do. So I don't know if we need to chat and have like a brainstorming session, or if we just need to get this updated and go from there. Happy to do whatever we need.
Jim should have a list of all the trees. I mean, there's a written list of all the trees.
Yeah.
It's about 60, give or take, of those.
Yeah.
So that is easy enough to obtain, and it's also on the website. So when the last ones were done is a question, because as far as I know, it's been a number of years since we did any that were officially approved through Aaron.
So this needs to be
and
updated on the city site also.
Yeah. And that's why I want to get this program rejuvenated and up and running for this year. Kathy, if you're willing to help out, what I'd like to do is schedule a meeting with you and Alana and pass on all the information that I've got about it. Because Anthony Snyder, who was worked sort of the overseer of the program for a number of years, passed along a couple of different lists, which I think are the most current list there are. And as Connie said, there hasn't been a lot of additions to them in recent years. So
yeah, I'd like to help out too, however I can.
Okay, excellent.
The other question I have is are we allowed to have a social media page, either Facebook or Instagram or anything like that?
No.
Okay.
Oh,
Not separate from the city.
we already went through that, Melissa, one time. No.
Okay. I was just curious.
Tom, I've done something in the past with the city Parks and Rec department where we have developed a hashtag and had the city posted it, so we can kind of quasi-track things that way, but it has to be put out through the city. It gives us a little bit more way to narrow it down, but that's kind of our only option.
Everything has to kind of be approved through the city, that is from a city appointed commission.
Gotcha. Okay. No, I'm just trying to understand the rules and regulations.
Right.
No, but we can work with Dylan Lee, and he's really easy to work with, and he'll post stuff for us, and he'll put it out on the channel, and I mean, he'll help us as much as he can get the information out.
I mean, what, you know, one way to market this is to highlight the one heritage tree, you know, every month or every 2 weeks or something like that. That way, people can understand, oh, you know, I drive by that tree every day, or, you know, it's around the corner from me where I walk or whatever else. So, you know, that might be a way to highlight and really market the heritage program to get people aware that, you know, people are recognizing these great trees that have been marked as heritage. So.
Yeah, we could certainly do that with the trees that are on public land or adjacent to the street on private land.
Yeah.
There are a number of folks that I've talked to who were happy to have a heritage tree in their yard, but they didn't want people tramping in their yard to look at it. So.
No, understood. You know, we have to respect people's privacy and that sort of thing, but if we can just highlight the ones that are within the public right of way and that sort of thing, I think it'll continue to really focus on, you know, moving the heritage program forward.
Excellent. Okay, good. Any other suggestions for new business, anything we need to discuss at this point? Okay, the meeting is adjourned, and our next meeting, and we'll stick with Zoom for at least 2 more meetings. At our April meeting, then we can talk about whether we feel like we're comfortable enough to meet in person again. So thank you for joining. Have a nice evening, everyone.
So Jim, just one thing on your big tree project. I mean, if you're going towards New Hanover County, you might want to have the arboretum or the arboretum focus on it or something like that.
Yeah, I'll discuss that with Lloyd to see what he thinks. It's a good idea.
Yeah, Lloyd's a forester, so yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Bye. Jim.